Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Can everybody hear me? Okay, that's probably because I didn't turn this on. Good evening. It's great to be here. I have enjoyed time in youth retreat this weekend. It was a great honor to be there. Landon did a great job of leading that and leading the young people in this congregation. And this congregation is full of fantastic teenagers and youth, and you are very blessed to have them. And I know that they are very blessed to have great parents, because usually great teenagers come from great parents. So it was a true treat to be with them this weekend, and it's a great honor to speak before you this evening. And so if I could have a volunteer, Drew, if you could come down, I'd greatly appreciate it. Drew is actually a hockey player, and I grew up in Canada, and so hockey is a huge sport. And so if you will come over there, Drew, and you will stand there. And in hockey, they have this thing called checking. And there's different types of checks that you can do. A hip check, you can do a cross check. But I have this hockey stick here that was donated for this purpose, and they will get it back. It's a nice hockey stick. And so I wanted to show you some of the different types of checks that you can do with a stick. And so I am going to demonstrate the ankle slash. And so you take your stick with two hands. No, Drew, you volunteered for this. I asked you. And you take it and you kind of chop. There's a good technique, chopping. And you put like a little angle to his ankle. And then it breaks, and then he is in pain. And so that's very good. And then you can also do a slash to the wrists. And so if he has his stick like this, see, he's a hockey player. And I go like that, and I break his wrist, and then I steal the puck. That's very good. And then there's another one. There is the hooking. And so you try to yank them like this. And then there is, I'm trying to think, the poke check. And so I'm just trying to poke them a little. I got to lift it up, you're right. See, he's an expert on this. He's an expert. You should be preaching this sermon. Now, since he did tell me more about this, I'm going to show him the spearing, where I take the stick and do what there, Drew? Jam it into your gut, and then he kind of hobbles over. And then the last one is, and the famous one, is called the cross check, where I take the stick and slam it across his chest or his head or anywhere where he falls down. Drew, you did a fantastic job. Thank you so much. He was a great volunteer in that. So we got to put this stick right here. So in hockey, you have the different types of checks. Satan is like a hockey player going around looking who he may devour or who he may want to take out. And so we're going to talk to you this evening about game tape on Satan. So if you're on a sports team, you watch game tape of your opponent to understand how they operate, to understand some of the plays that they call and some of the techniques that they use. And so we're going to look at some of the game tape on Satan so that we can better understand how to defeat him, because he is our foe. So let's look at some game tape from 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 6 to 9. He says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxiety on him, because he cares for you. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of suffering." We're going to look at various tactics that Satan uses and how we can use tactics to defeat them. The first tactic that we need to use to defeat Satan is to humble ourselves. Humble yourself. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Pride is a red flag for Satan. And when he sees pride in your life, he knows it's an automatic symbol that you are skating around with your head down, waiting to be devoured. And so if he can sense pride in your life, pride in who you are, he realizes that you are susceptible to his tricks. Now, why is pride so dangerous to us? And why does Satan look for pride in us in order to tempt us? It's because we don't see him coming. He is like that roaring lion, but he is also like the lion that sits there and waits, and you don't think that he can devour you and take you out. He doesn't think that Satan has the ability to destroy your life. And so pride allows us to be infatuated with who we are and how strong we are. And so when we have pride, we fall prey to his temptations, because Satan has this ability to come and he makes promises that he cannot keep. He makes deals that seem to be in our favor, where he will come to us in the wilderness as he comes to Jesus. And you know that when he comes to Jesus, he says, if you just bow down to me, I'll give you all these kingdoms. Who said that they were Satan's to give in the first place? Who said that Satan has that ability to give those kingdoms away? But Satan does that in your life because he will make deals with you and tell you, if you will only follow me, if you will only compromise, if you will only fall into that sin, don't worry, you can sin and you won't be caught. You can sin, there won't be any consequences. Satan is the master of making a deal that he can't keep. And so he will tell you that you can sin and nothing will happen to you. And pride makes you, because of course you could sin and get away with it. You're smart. You're savvy. You have the ability to fool somebody. Pride makes you believe that Satan has real deals. Reminds me of Philip Fulmer, who was the coach for the University of Tennessee. And when University of Tennessee used to recruit 5-star kids, now we're just happy to have anybody play on our team. But back in the day, Philip Fulmer said the number one problem with 5-star recruits in college are 5-star recruits in college. And it was because these kids would come out of high school and they could do no wrong. They were so athletically gifted that you just put them on the field and they were going to dominate the competition. And so they never really needed a lot of coaching. They didn't need a bunch of instruction. They were just naturally gifted with this talent. And so when they went to college and you tried to coach them, they're like, what are you talking about? I'm the best. And he says, I would rather have a 5-star who thinks he's a 3-star than a 5-star who thinks he's an NFLer already. You're not coachable. And when we listen to God, we read and look at this game tape. Are we listening to what the Lord is telling us? Because if not, we're not being coachable. He's telling us how to guard against Satan. We need to listen to his instruction. The next technique that we can use to guard against Satan is to calm yourself. Calm yourself. Look at 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. It's amazing what happens when we become stressed or worried or anxious in life. That we start to feel that life is very insecure. And if you read fiction books about Satan, there's this common narrative about how Satan will go to always always this promise that if you'll just follow me, if you'll just bow down to me, if you'll just give me your soul, then I will give you everything your heart's desired. And it's always rooted in this one simple need of humanity. Satan offers security. And that's why people will make a deal with him. Because in fiction, it's always come and I will give you the gold. I'll give you the power. And so if you just listen to me, you can have security. But God tells us, don't cast your cares upon Satan. Don't think Satan can provide the solution to your worries and your stress. The only person that can provide care and concern for your worries is God, because God cares for you. In contrast to Satan, who doesn't care for you, God cares about your worries. God cares about those things that you struggle with. And so if we're going to defeat Satan, we need to realize that some of the short circuits that we go through in order to find fulfillment and security in life that Satan is promising will be unfulfilling. But if we cast our cares upon God, God's the one that looks after us. Look at the next technique. Focus yourself. Focus yourself. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. The idea of being alert means to be not intoxicated. It means to be aware of what's happening, to be on your guard. And here's why. At the very end of that verse, you see the word devour. And in the original language, that word literally means to swallow in one gulp. It's the same word that is used for the whale swallowing Jonah. It means that Satan is seeking to destroy you in your life with one sin. You know how we have always taught that sin kind of comes into your life and it tempts you, it brings you kind of further and further into itself. But Satan is also willing to knock you out, to check you, and to make you completely destroyed with one bad decision. Now, there's some sins that you can do habitually over and over again, but there's also those choices in your life that once you have made them, life will never be the same again. Think about some of the choices people have made where they could never go back. That Satan so destroyed everything in their lives that the consequences of that one sin will influence the rest of their time on earth. Reminds me of a friend of mine who was working at Joseph A. Banks, and he had a boss. And this boss was a good man. This man had a wife and family and kids. And one day, he was driving home from a get-together with some friends, and he had a little too much. Not a ton, but just a little too much to drink. And as he was driving, he got into an accident. This man will spend the next 10 years of his life in jail. Because while he was driving home with a little too much, he ran into a mom and her daughter and killed both of them. If you were to ask this man, did he intend that? Did he want that? No. There's no way he wanted to do that. But he is now going to be in jail. And his kids will grow up with the majority of their life without a dad because of just one bad decision, one bad call. And that's what Satan wants to do to us. We need to be aware that when Satan is fighting, he's fighting to destroy your life and everybody else in it. He is not trying to just lure you in. Sometimes he wants to take you out with one moment, one decision that you will always have to live with. And so we need to be alert. We need to be aware. We need to pay attention because that one bad decision can destroy everything you have worked towards. And so watch the game tape and realize Satan's looking to hurt you to such an extent that you may not recover in this life. You can be forgiven, but the consequences will remain. That's why we need to strengthen ourselves. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 9, resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of suffering. James says the same thought. James 4:7, submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil and he will flee from you. We have to stand firm and we have to stand together. And to stand firm means to brace yourself. To stand against him trying to tempt you and to lead you astray. And then once you stand firm, make sure you're standing together in the church. We need church people to hold us accountable. We need the fellowship so that when we are starting to fall in temptation, we have that constant reminder. We're around people who love us to remind us that God still loves you. That we are the people who are standing with one another, strengthening each other for this journey so we don't lose heart, so that we don't fall to the temptation of Satan. The only way we're going to defeat Satan in the game tape is if we're all together fighting and pulling against him together. We need each other because Satan is looking to win. I remember years ago when I first moved to America, I had this friend and he called me up and he said, do you want to play paintball? And I was like a Canadian and we're scared of guns. And I was like, yes! My mama would never let me have a gun growing up. I just want to shoot something. And so I remember going in this battle and this adrenaline was just flowing through me. And I'm going through this little ravine and there was this 12 and he was in a firefight with somebody else on my team. And I couldn't help myself. I couldn't stop myself. And I grabbed that paintball and it was a semi-automatic or automatic. I'm not really sure. I'm Canada. We don't know much about guns. And I just pulled the trigger and I started blasting him. Well, the rule was if you hit somebody, they were supposed to say, I'm shot, and then you stop. I knew that rule. I couldn't follow it. I couldn't. It felt so good. And I just, shooting that kid, and that poor kid's on the ground, and he's rolling like, ow, I'm shot. And I'm like, I don't care. And he gets up and he goes up and he shows all these welts over him. And he's like, someone shot me like over and over again. I said, man, that's too bad. Satan is like a Canadian with a gun for the first time. If he feels like he can take you out, he's going to keep shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting. He wants to hurt you to the very best of his ability and leave lasting scars. That's why we got to watch the game tape. Because he's not winning. He's not trying to play a game. He's trying to destroy your soul. But you have an opportunity to fight back. If you choose to be a Christian, if you will believe, confess, repent, and be baptized for the remission of your sins, rise up out of that water to newness of life. Or maybe the invitation is this. Is there an area in your life right now where Satan is winning? Satan is getting the best of you. I want you to reflect on that area. And this week, fight back. If that means standing firm, stand firm. If that means standing together, get some help. But ponder that